Hello, and thanks for joining me, Phil Spencer, for my expert guide to guarantors. A guarantor, in some cases, is the person who can often make the difference between you being able to rent or not. When you're moving into a new rental pad, you absolutely must check the tenancy agreement with a fine-tooth comb. This is the contract between you and the landlord, and it sets out the rent and all the rules that go with that. MoveIQ have created a fantastic tenancy agreement checklist to help you navigate this vital document. So click on the link below and get your checklist for free. Now, a guarantor is someone who agrees to pay your rent if you can't for any reason. It's a safety net, for want of a better word, for the landlord. If you don't or you can't pay your rent, and your landlord is then able to ask your guarantor to pay on your behalf instead. This also means your guarantor can be taken to court if they too cannot pay the rent. Landlords and letting agents may ask private renters for a guarantor if you're renting for the first time, or you're a student, or you've recently moved to the UK. Guarantor is also often asked for if your credit score is poor, your income is low, or if you are unemployed. Although a guarantor is usually a close friend or relative, this doesn't have to be the case. Individual guarantors can be any adult, providing that they have a good credit history, a stable income, or savings over a particular amount. Landlords are very likely to check your guarantor's credit score, as well as proof of their income and other financial information. A landlord might refuse a guarantor for a number of reasons. For example, if they're retired or they don't own a property. If a guarantor doesn't live in the UK, it can then be harder to take legal action against them, which is why a landlord might refuse a guarantor who lives abroad. Guarantors who are accepted will sign an agreement stating their responsibilities and what they might need to pay and when. They may be liable for more than unpaid rent, such as damage to the property or something like that. It does depend on the agreement, so it is vital that guarantors check the agreement carefully so they fully understand what their obligations are. But what about if you share your accommodation with others under one tenancy agreement? This might be the case in a student house, or if you live with a partner or friends. In that case, the guarantee may apply to everyone's rent, not just your own. This means your guarantor would have to pay if one or more than one tenant didn't pay their rent. And that is perhaps another reason why it's essential to check the guarantee agreement very carefully indeed. It might be possible to negotiate the terms before it's signed, but it's certainly not possible after it's signed. So the tenant and the guarantor need to check and be happy with what the guarantor is liable for. For example, is it just the rent? Is it multiple tenants' rent? How long does the guarantor agreement last? What happens in the case of a joint tenancy? And is the agreement open-ended? That could mean that the guarantor is agreeing to rent increases, or that their liability could extend beyond the fixed period. So once again, a lot to bear in mind. It's useful and important stuff. But what if you can't get a guarantor? There are options. You could use a guarantor service. That usually costs you a monthly amount. You could offer to pay your landlord more rent in advance. Housing charities or your local council might offer rent deposit, bond or guarantee schemes, and students could potentially turn to their university or college for support. So there are options, but you're going to have to be quite proactive about getting them. The MoveIQ website has stacks of advice for renters, whatever stage you're at, so do please check that out now. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and hit the alert bell to stay up to date with all the latest property news and advice.